So my name is Lucas Siriani. I'm from the Seneca Works department here at Seneca College. For those of you who don't know, Seneca Works is a service available to all our students and recent graduates. And we're here to assist you on everything career related, from workshops to panels to career fairs and kind of informal chats like this. We're here to provide you service and tips and insights into your industry. And I'm currently working here supporting our students, and I'm also a Seneca alumni from the HR programs. Mercy.
Hi everyone, my name is Mercy Ayesha. If you guys have been to any of the recent events run by the Seneca Student Federation, then you might recognize my voice or my face. I'm a part of the events team, and I'm really just here to assist Luca in making sure that you're prepared for job interviews, because as we all know, the key goal here is to hopefully get a great education and then get a great job. And that's Luca's job and the Seneca Works team to make sure that that happens and that we do that. So I guess we are going to start with questions. Is that correct?
Sure.
The
Yeah,
questions are for
I'm
you.
ready.
Perfect. Because I do have a few. So we're talking about jobs. What is the importance of a job interview? Like, we get it. Okay, cool. It's to get the job. But what within a job interview makes that process of requiring employment really important, really special?
Yeah, for sure. And depending on people's knowledge of the whole job search process, the interview comes into play when one has, most likely formally applied to an open job and has been selected as one of the potentially ideal candidates for the role. So, the interview in a nutshell is an opportunity for you to not only sell your skills, but also show a connection to why working at this specific organization is important to you and something that really motivates you. So, many times, we would get called for an interview, and we have some parameters as to what to expect. Um, and that's really where our work starts. And when I mean our work, I mean our work in preparing ourselves to put our best foot forward and make a positive impression on the interviewers, potentially. So when I say it's time for us to start our work, it's really about now really diving into the job posting further and looking at the skill sets that they've highlighted, reflecting on if and how I have those skill sets. How can I demonstrate that potentially in the course of a resume? But I'm also looking bigger picture and trying to determine, the interview, as much as it is about them trying to get a sense of me and my skills, it's really an opportunity for me to get a sense of the company. Is this an organization I'm motivated to work for and represent and do work for? So, it's really important that you research the company. What can I find about them in the news recently, positively and or negatively? What's their mission, their vision? What do they stand for as an organization? And is that something I'm aligned to? So all this kind of really starts to unfold and be understood by both parties in the course of an interview.
Thank you so much for that. And I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you want to elaborate on this, that's fine. I guess, the importance of a job interview is about not just selling yourself, but also the company selling itself to you too, right? But how would you prepare to sell yourself in a job interview? How would you prepare to kind of, present your skills in the way that you'd like to?
Right. So again, I will always go back to the job posting that I applied to, and then pick out what they're looking for, and have perhaps examples of how have I shown that I've mastered this skill, or I have an understanding of this skill. And it doesn't always have to be, in a work setting. Many times as a new graduate, I might not have that actual skill set demonstrated in a work experience, but I do so as part of my studies, as part of group projects, perhaps as part of volunteering. So it's trying to really show that I have these skill sets, and selling them to the employer. Um, in addition to showing that I am, a great candidate because I have the skill sets, it's really important for us to, in addition to show competence, um, it's really important for us to show warmth and a passion to work for the company because maybe out of the people that they're interviewing, there's three or four others who also can do the skills that they're asking for. But it's really about now showing how and why I'm passionate to work for company X. What do I know about them? How are we aligned? So that now the interviewers are saying, great, they all have the skill sets, but this person's gone a step further. He understands who we are as an organization, and he or she seems very motivated to work here. So now we're not only hiring the right candidate, we're hiring the right candidate who potentially they can see as having a long-term future in the organization. And I think ultimately that's what, combining the skill sets with the passion and warmth as an individual is something that needs to be demonstrated in an interview.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And I guess my next question is what are the most common types of interviews? Because I know there are different types. I know that you mentioned that generally you get some information about, what type of interview it might be or what is required of you in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the common types of interviews that you've kind of seen in your experience?
Yeah, so it might vary from industry to industry slightly for sure. Some interviews might have some type of testing component afterwards to show, again, competence in a certain field, or your writing skills, or your math skills, or your competency in using Excel. These would all be kind of add-ons or additions to the the verbal interview, which for the most part we see as being somewhat very the same. Many interviews will follow a certain common theme in the sense that um, the interview questions to start with tend to be very open-ended, so that they get a better understanding of you and your skill sets. And then they generally tend to move into what's known as behavioral type questions and or situational questions. So the behavioral type of questions, which are commonly asked, are um, they're designed to assess your prior experience in specific situations and understanding how you reacted or worked in those situations, because that might determine how you might solve the problem in the future. So these types of questions generally tend to start with, tell me about a time, right? Tell me about a time you worked on a team and there was a conflict or a disagreement amongst the team members on how to solve a certain problem. These tell me about situations, again, give the employer or the interviewees a sense of the situation and how it was handled and what actions you took to kind of solve the problems. And anytime we're talking about these types of questions, we're trying to think of situations where there was some type of problem or conflict. We took certain steps to resolve the issues. And at the end of the day, hopefully, these were the positive results as a result of my actions and the actions of the team. The situational type questions, which again tend to be very popular in interviews, are hypothetical in nature and trying to gauge your ability to problem solve. So it's not necessarily a situation that you've actually lived through, but it's a hypothetical situation that might be common in the type of role that you're working in. So, for example, I don't know, I'm working in a customer service role. A situational type question can be a customer comes to, or you pick up a call from a customer who's been incorrectly overcharged for a certain product and is really upset. How do you solve the problem? Again, here it's really an opportunity to for them to understand and for you to demonstrate what actions am I going to take, why am I taking these actions, and what factors did I take in making this decision. So again, it's really trying to understand why you're taking specific actions and the reasons for your actions. So most interviews will follow some type of, or will include some type of traditional open-ended behavioral past experiences and situational hypothetical questions for the future. Again, then industry specific, there might be some form of testing or case assignment that one completes afterwards. This is generally, I think, a sense of what people can expect in interviews. Things have shifted and are shifting for sure as we go online more and more. Interviews have also shifted towards these virtual type settings and interviews. And many times what we're starting to see also is some of the open-ended or traditional type questions are almost pre-recorded in nature. So there's software now that, maybe an employer is trying to shortlist candidates for a role. They might send them a link to record a few questions. The employer now views these questions and now starts to determine and shortlist even further, who they want to interview. So, you know, um, these are, I think, some of the more common types of interviews that we see and kind of see overall across the spectrum.
Thank you so much for that. That was really insightful. And actually, something I noticed is that at the start of an interview, you're right, that you do have the open-ended questions about who you are, and you're kind of giving them a little bit of like your passion, right? And at the end, it's far more situational. And I've definitely had a couple of like pre-recorded ones and things like that. So, yeah, that was really insightful actually to figure out what they were trying to get from me at that time. And I guess, as I was talking about like the end of the interview and, you might be a bit frazzled, or you might just kind of be glad that it's over. But I know that when I was growing up, I was always told, oh, there's something you should always do at the end of the interview. And I kind of wanted to ask you, what is that in your opinion? What should one do at the end of an interview to really seal the deal, to really leave that employer with a good feeling about you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I've felt a whole range of different feelings after an interview, depending on, again, how I felt I did. Um, and that's why I think it's really important for us to practice um, in mock interviews with a friend, with a colleague, with us in the Seneca Works department, so that much like anything else, we're practicing. We now become more comfortable, not only with the situations, but sometimes some of us we find it difficult to speak to our skills. And sometimes we might feel like we're bragging, even though we might not be. But practice for sure is important. In terms of wrapping up an interview, I think I like to re-summarize again my skill sets, why I make an ideal candidate for this role, why working for this organization is something that really motivates me beyond the job. Um, and then throw in a little bit about something I might have learned throughout the interview. Um, so they might mention something about sustainability or um, hiring people from diverse backgrounds. I can sprinkle that into maybe my final answer, just so in closing they understand, I'm not only a suitable candidate who can do the job, I'm someone who's extremely motivated to work for this company and help move it forward. Yeah.
I
And
really
then
like that.
yeah, and then beyond that, I think obviously thanking them for their time and I recommend after the interview, perhaps later that evening or the following day, just to send them one more thank you via email, um, kind of just so they have something in writing and they remember, oh yeah, like this one really stands out.
Yeah, that's what I was told. I was
No.
always told after the interview, always send a thank you. And I guess it's the same here as well. What key tips and takeaways, anything you haven't mentioned, anything that you feel like our audience should know when it comes to really trying to put your best foot forward during a job interview? Anything that comes to mind, any key tips or takeaways, key tips, sorry, or
Yeah, so
takeaways?
yeah, so I've heard on more than a few occasions that first 5 minutes of the interview is really about um, that first impression, right? The reality is we all have first impressions, and we've started to gauge some of our first impressions with the interactions we've had with the employer, right? And the employers already started to do that with us, right? Maybe there was a telephone conversation to set up an interview, or they called us to clarify some information on our resume, or I went on and linked to LinkedIn and checked out their profile, and they checked out my profile too. So we've already started to gauge and make some first impressions of each other. That first 5 minutes, where it's that open-ended questions, that's where I've heard, between 50 and 70% of decisions to hire or not hire are really made in those first 5 minutes. And everything else is just a confirmation, an important confirmation, but it's a confirmation that this individual can do the job. So really, again, when they're talking about tell me about yourself and maybe what you know about the company, it's really important to, I think, start the interview off on the front foot. Showing some ideas of the research you've done, demonstrating again yourself as the ideal candidate, but going beyond that and showing warmth and courtesy and smiling and just really making a first good impression, I think, is important, and I think it sets the tone for the rest of the interview for sure.
That was really interesting that you said that like in the first 5 minutes. I didn't know that. That's really wow. That is, well, I'm glad I made a good impression on the SSF
There you
then.
go.
That's great. Okay, I will hand it over to Luca, but I do hope those questions were insightful. They definitely were for me. Is there anything else you want me to add or talk about? I feel like I've given you a great introduction, to be honest.
Okay.